So Tim, I want to know what you wear when you're not working.
It depends upon what I'm doing and where I'm going. I mean, I have to tell you, work consumes me, and I'm not complaining, I'm just describing. But I haven't had a weekend off in countless months. I'm constantly doing something. Does everybody know, I mean, in addition to Project Runway and Guide to Style, which are actually very neatly contained, we tape Project Runway in 31, 32 days, and Guide to Style is a week an episode, and there are 8 of them. But then I'm Chief Creative Officer of Liz Claiborne, so I have a full plate. So I can't say to Liz Claiborne, I'm going to go to the beach for a couple of days,
right,
because they don't see a lot of me.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, when I am home on a Saturday and I go out to get coffee in the paper and go grocery shopping and do my laundry and pick up my dry cleaning, I wear jeans and a T-shirt and a jacket.
I love it. Okay, I'd like to see that.
Throw the jacket.
Would you ever call yourself a glamour don't? Like, what's your down outfit?
Probably just that.
Okay,
I clean my apartment in a pair of shorts. I mean, short shorts, not underwear shorts.
I'd love to see. Tell me a little bit about a typical day.
A typical. Well,
how do you balance all 3 things?
All right, let me describe today.
Okay.
I had. God, I'm trying to think back. It seems like such a long day. Well, it is a long day. All right, let me describe today. I just returned from New Orleans, where we had a Liz Claiborne holiday fashion show at a newly reopened, no, it's a brand new Macy's Lakeside. So I flew back from that, let me give you the last couple of days. Flew back from that last Saturday night. Didn't get in until close to 1 o'clock in the morning. Had to change planes in Detroit, and they lost my luggage. So they no longer, I'm like Rick Van Winkle, I've been asleep for 40 years. I thought that the airline would send your luggage to your apartment. Mm-hmm. No. So in the middle of the marathon, I had to go pick it up yesterday because I needed stuff that was in it for today. So that derailed some of yesterday. I had to have a lunch with an auction winner and her husband, which was perfectly delightful. And I actually had the evening sort of free, which was nice. Then I had an 8 o'clock morning meeting at Liz Claiborne. Then I had a meeting with my boss at 11 to make a presentation about the rest of the, the rest of the winter season, and then projecting into the spring and summer season in terms of the various brands. Then I met with the head of marketing at Liz, and I had a whole series of Liz Claiborne meetings. Then I had to go replace my cell phone at Sprint. Then I came running back to my apartment to actually change because I looked, well, I'll tell you the honest truth. Somebody on 42nd Street was all in a lather and fervor about the fact that I was sitting there in front of her, and her Starbucks coffee went up in the air and came all over me. So I couldn't have come here like that. I looked very badly stained, and it wasn't good. I just want to make certain I'm talking to everybody. And then I came here to be with you, and I'm thrilled. And then I have to run home because I have what we call a radio roundup of interviews that are happening in Australia. So because of the time change, I'm doing it. Well, I'm doing them at night. It's their morning. So whenever that ends, I'll have a frozen pizza.
So about Project Runway, have you ever disagreed with what the judges?
I disagree with the judges all the time. All the time. And if you ever see season 6, which we just wrapped, and I say that only because with this lawsuit, we don't know what's going to happen to it. Those crack-smoking judges is all I have to say. No, I disagree all the time.
You do.
I tend to agree. Well, I tend to agree more with what goes home than with what wins. And I will say that when the work is well executed, and generally speaking it is, it does become a matter of taste. But I often think that the judges aren't really fully considering, to the extent that I believe they should, the context of the challenge. Meaning, what was the problem that they were solving?
Right.
Because it may be a beautifully executed dress, but does it really correspond to the demands of the challenge?
What has been your highlight of all of the Project Runways? If you were going to think about that one moment that was the most interesting to you, what would you say that it was?
Well, can I really tell you what it is?
Yes,
because
really. They want to know the secrets, right?
Well, it's actually rather independent of taping the show. We had taped season 1, and I have to tell you, in all honesty, I never dreamed there'd be a second season. I thought this show has been a tremendous amount of fun to do, and doing it will be good cocktail party talk. And I just never dreamed we'd have a season 2. And I also want everyone to know, my first involvement with Project Runway has had nothing to do with what I do on the show now. I was a consultant. And my role in the show was in absolutely no one's vocabulary. So even that happening was a huge surprise for me. And I have to add, no one ever said this to me, but I'm still confident that the producers created this role because they were fearful that by giving the designers a challenge and sending them into the workroom, no one would speak. They do their work, and you wouldn't hear a voice again until they come onto the runway to present their design. So by sending me in to probe and to query, it would at least elicit some dialogue. And on that note, I was equally confident that I wouldn't be in the show. As long as they have the designers responding to me, you don't need to see me, you don't need to hear my voice. So when we had the premiere, I didn't attend because I thought, if I'm in the show, what am I going to look like and sound like and be like? And if I'm not in the show, I'm going to be totally humiliated. So the show aired, and I was very concerned about how 7th Avenue would respond, how our industry would respond to all of this. And it was very, very mixed. And some people I was and still am very close to were very naysaying about it. They thought it was unrealistic in terms of time constraints. I disagreed then, I still disagree. They felt that it didn't portray the industry the way that they would like to, and I'll give you my interpretation of that. Prior to Project Runway, the industry was really portrayed in a very glamorous way. It was like this big frothy confection, and furthermore, it was the confection was a kind of veil of mystery over all of it, and it caused everyone to think, including my students, that while I'm a student, it's hard work, but once I get into the industry as a designer or as a merchant or a stylist, whatever the role may be, it's going to be nothing but glamour, and I'll be at the end of a runway collecting a huge bouquet of flowers, and I'll be flying off to Saint-Tropez to rest and repair, and it's like baloney. So Project Runway rips the veil off and says, look, this industry is dirty, gritty, daunting, difficult, and unless you love it, don't do it. So the industry was a little snarky about it. So here's the moment I'm leading up to.
Okay.
It's Bastille Day 2005. We have just wrapped season 2 of Project Runway. So we've had it, season 1 has aired, season 2 has been done, and I get choked up about this. The Emmys are announced, and Project Runway season 1 has been nominated for an Emmy. So the producers and the crew are still at Parsons because we just wrapped. And I go tearing through the halls at Parsons, shouting at the top of my lungs, we're nominated for an Emmy! We're nominated for an Emmy! And then that evening, walking home, I was on 7th Avenue and just fairly coincidentally ran into 2 of the people who were snarky. And I just looked at them and I knew I had, forgive me, kind of shit-eating grin on my face. And I just said, well, for all of your bad-mouthing of Project Runway, we've just been nominated for an Emmy. And that was a thrilling, thrilling moment because it was an endorsement that it's a show of quality, and we were the first cable show ever to be nominated in that category, ever. And we've had 3 subsequent seasons of Emmy nominations. We never won, but we did win a Peabody Award this past year. And do you all know the Peabody? So there we were. You can't nominate yourself. The committee has to find you and select you, the Peabody Committee. So there we were with news programs and documentaries, and there's strife and consternation everywhere, and blood and death and destruction. And then there's happy, peppy little us. So it was really thrilling. It was really, really thrilling.
That's amazing.
I told you I would babble away.
No, I love it. I think it's phenomenal. Is there any scene that was cut from Project Runway that you wish would have aired?
Oh, lots of them.
Give me like a highlight behind the scenes, juicy bit of information that all of us would love to hear about.
Well, the brilliance of the show is how deft the editors are, because there are dozens and dozens of hours of tape from anywhere from 4 to 6 or, well, 8, 9 cameras. And I see everything, except what happens in the apartments, and I don't want to see it. I see everything that's happening in the workroom all day, and I don't know how I would ever tell the story in terms of being able to slice and dice it and be cohesive. And it's especially true when we have seasons where we're still taping when the show begins to air, because the editors and the producers don't know what the outcome of the show is.
Right.
And so part of their goal is to give you a little bit more of who will be staying in longer. And if you don't know, it can be really difficult. So God, there's so much.
Well, maybe what I was
out.
trying to think about is, have you ever had a conflict with Michael or Nina or Heidi?
Oh, but you have to remember, Susie, I don't engage with Michael or Heidi
Right.
or Nina when we're taping. I mean, that's not true. I say hello, but that's it. I mean, it's a church and state situation for me, really, because they want to talk to me about what's been going on in the workroom. What do I think? What happened? Who struggled? Who was falling apart? Who do I think should really win? Who should go home? I can't do that. So I am there during the judgings, but I'm in the very back of the auditorium, both literally and metaphorically, in the dark. And do I want to jump up and shout and say things? All the time, all the time. But let me just give you one behind-the-scenes thing that I wish had been on the show, because it highlighted his insanity. I don't know how many of you saw season 3. We went to Paris. Vincent Libretti. Vincent is or had been a vegan, and we were very, very respectful of that, and responded to anyone's dietary needs, but he was particularly vocal about them. And anticipating going to Paris is all he talked about. They'll never understand this. They won't be able to accommodate this. What are we going to do? What am I going to do? I'll starve. Trust me, Vincent, you won't starve. So in the show, I take the designers to a restaurant the first night that we're there. This is all real. We really did this. And we called ahead and to explain Vincent's needs. And they couldn't have been lovelier and more accommodating. And they had a 3-course meal for him, and everything was set up. So we arrive at the restaurant, and this is all on camera. I tell him that this is the situation and that they couldn't have been nicer, and to relax, not to worry about it. And he said, I don't want their vegan meal. What do you mean you don't want it? What are you going to eat? So he picks up the chalkboard that was next to the table. He says, I'm going to have the leg of lamb. The leg of lamb? What are you talking about, the leg of lamb? And he looks at me and says, when in Rome. So I wish it had been in the show.